Welcome to Rates and Barrels. It is Monday, November 24th. We're recording this on Thursday, November 20th. So if some ridiculous baseball stuff happened during the long weekend between our recordings, I apologize for that. Derek Van Riper, Sarah's Trevor May here with you. Trevor, how's it going? It's been a little while.
Good. Just taking it one day at a time, trying to get to Thanksgiving.
What have you been up to? What have you been doing?
Just the normal stuff, making tons of videos and writing a bunch of stuff, and then trying to fight the fact that it gets dark at 4:30 at night is the big one. But no, everything's good. My son's sleeping a little bit too. That helps. He is getting big so fast, though. Everyone says that, but there's no way to get prepared for it when you wake up and his hair is like an inch longer. You're like, what just happened? Why? How are you walking almost right now? Like yesterday, you couldn't even see me. What's going on?
Yeah, that's a fun show to watch play out on a day-to-day basis. I think you now have more experience also with daylight savings time being just the best prank the world has ever played on parents. Like, I had no idea until I was a parent how goofy daylight savings time actually is. What are you up to? What's been going on with you?
Yeah, nothing much. Just trying to get all my ducks in line. I took the boys to a Stanford basketball game. That was fun. The tickets were cheap, and we got to sit up pretty close, and we had a good time. It's kind of fun to have that at our disposal, though. I did wonder. I was like watching it, and it was like, okay, so we were watching Louisiana, like the Raging Cajuns, right, against Stanford, and I was like, so they flew out 15 people, 20 people to this thing, and now there are like 400 people watching. And I heard some people in the elevator say like their tickets were $1, and our tickets were like $12. And I was just like, look at all the empty seats. I was like, is this sustainable? Like, what's the idea here? Is there like a lotto ticket thing, or like, oh, but we could get good and then we'd sell all this out, or wait till Duke comes and then we'll sell all this out. And, I was like, I don't know. Like, this is a little bit weird.
To answer your question, no, it's not sustainable. I don't know how long it's going to live before it breaks, but it's definitely not sustainable. Is that a conference game now?
Way. I don't know who's in the ACC. I don't think the Raging Cajuns are in the ACC, but
no, they're not.
We do play weirder games now, for sure. We used to just play all the West Coast teams, and now it's the Raging Cajuns. Now everyone's flying, and we're in the ACC. Like, how weird is that? Even my kids were like,
SMU, North Carolina State
Conference.
Is it still the Pac-2? Are we still in the Pac-2, or is the Pac gone now?
I think the Pac is gone.
Okay.
They joined. Some of them joined the Mountain West or something.
Okay.
Yeah, it's sad. I actually really like the Pac-12. I want it to come back someday, but that's a topic for another show. So on this episode, we're going to look for some rebound pitchers using Sierra, kind of looking at some of the early steamer projections. Going to take a look back at big free agent deals for starting pitchers, how those played out, and look at some of the top end guys in this market to see how they might fare. And we're also going to dig into a question from one of our listeners. Could 2026 be the year of the splitter? It's been rumored to be the year of the splitter for a long time running. It's something Davey Andrews of Fangraphs wrote about during the playoffs. We saw a big spike of splitters in the postseason. Does that actually mean we're getting more splitters in 2026? But let's get started with some rebound pitchers. And Trevor and I did an episode in July while Eno was in Germany, and we were looking for second half bounce backs using a pretty similar method, just looking at ERA up to that point in the season, looking at Sierra, taking the difference, saying, okay, who's probably unlucky to this point just based on their skills, and could we explain why the gaps are as wide as they are? Now, the good thing about this time of year, we got one publicly available set of projections with Steamer that can help us sort of check ourselves a little bit, see where we might be going in the future. And there's one name that just pops off the board with this method. Cole Ragans just jumps off the page as someone who, in his brief time around a rotator cuff strain, was extremely unlucky. Cole Ragans, to me, looks like a guy that can actually win a Cy Young Award with health. I think he has that kind of stuff. 4.67 ERA last season, 2.52 Sierra. with a 30.4% K minus BB percentage. And I think my main takeaway stat on Cole Ragans is he has a 77.5% zone contact percentage. If you go back to the 2023 season and just look at starters, number one among all starters. And that's just one of my metrics I like as a key indicator. Can you miss bats in the zone? Cole Ragans does that better than any starter in the big leagues going back to 2023. So it's elevated health risk. This is a guy that's had 2 TJs. First one, the graft didn't work, had to have that redone. That's at least pretty far back in the rear view. And we still had that rotator cuff strain last season, but he came back from that. We saw him in September. And overall, the velo didn't look that bad. So I think we're looking at Cole Ragans as a true ace again going into 2026, both from fantasy perspective, but also from a real life perspective too. Trevor, I'm curious if you see that type of ceiling on Ragans, like an actual Cy Young caliber season from him, if he's able to stay completely healthy for 30 plus starts.
Absolutely. I saw. I made my prediction for the top 3 Cy Young last year was him, Skubal, and Crochet in the AL, and I got 2 of them. I think that without him, I actually wanted to have the hot take and I had Ragans taking it, but that was assuming that he was healthy all year. And you just mentioned a lot of these stats, if you extrapolate them out to the same number of innings those other 2 guys thrown, like he's just as good and even a little bit better in some, including zone swing and miss rate. So I definitely think it's there. They're all, I can't help to notice they're all 3 lefties. The hard throwing lefty is it's the time for that. But yeah, he's absolutely got that potential. I think that he's shown his ability to be really consistent too and do it over and over and over again. The year before was a huge step in this 2024, huge step in the right direction, which made me believe this stuff. It's about staying healthy, and he has had some pretty big, red flag injury things, and a strain on the rotator cuff is never good, but it was just a strain, and he did end the year healthy. So like to think he's not going to start the year next year healthy and be off to the races, we can assume that is the case, and I think the numbers kind of speak for themselves. I wouldn't count him out, but I want to see 200 innings. We got to see 200 innings, and if we see healthy for 200 innings, there's no doubt in my mind he's not a top 3, if not a Cy Young award winner.
Yeah, and I'm just going to take the under on those innings. I'm just parroting what you guys have said, but I just wanted to add to the equation. He's never pitched 100 innings in consecutive seasons. I guess there's 2023 in the minors. He had 28. So, okay. With the Derek Van Riper method, he in 2023 and 2024, he had consecutive seasons of 100 innings, but that was 125. Then 186, then 61 last year. I'm just going by the innings. I'm going to give him an over-under of like 120 innings next year. I mean, that would be the second most innings he's ever thrown in his career. So the 170 is where I take some pause. I like him on a per inning basis.
Trevor, are we okay using the DVR method as called it? I mean, I think minor league workloads matter when trying to project major league workloads. I think getting to a total, even if it's all in the minors or split between the minors and majors, is at least a reasonably useful guide for overall health and what a pitcher is capable of.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, you still have to throw. Like, what else can you really go off of? You have to build those numbers up, and I know they're coddled, and it's a lot slower down there usually, especially for the big guys that they are projecting to throw a lot. But it comes down to up downs. You have to have the ability to go sit down and rev it back up, cool down, warm up, cool down, warm up. Like that is kind of where that is where a lot of the research is pointing to, also with like where injuries come from as well. How well do you handle that stuff? And if that's where the value is, even if the intensity of the innings or the pressure or whatever isn't there. Like that's usually what's missing in the minors. So in terms of like workload stuff, though all innings aren't created equal, the up downs are. So like you can.
That's a good point. I mean, the minor league innings are innings, and so you should add them in, but they may not count exactly the same as major league innings. You'll see guys throw harder when they get to the big leagues.
Yeah, So maybe it's less. Maybe it's like every minor league innings 0.8 of a big or whatever.
Yeah,
like,
right, exactly.
But it is a reasonable.
Sure.
Yeah. Like, but if a guy's throwing 110 innings, then 115 innings, then 120 innings in the minors, like you're still
can't ignore
90, 95, 100 in the big leagues. Like you got to be throwing 100. And I threw my last 4 years starting in the minors, I threw 150 plus all 4 years, and
Wow.
I haven't seen a minor leaguer throw 150 innings in the minors ever. So, but that was because they were like, we 200 plus. If you're going to pitch in the big leagues, you have to be able to throw 200 plus. I know that's not the standard anymore, but like that was the goal, and that's why we did that stuff. There's actually a conversation I had with Zach Littell, because if we see how he pitches, that guy is like out there like I'm eating innings. Like that is his whole mentality. But he was told as minors, in the minors, like however your season goes, if your goal is to lead the league in innings every single year, you will make it and you will get a starting job. And it took him a while. He was a reliever for a while, and that mindset didn't work while like in 1918, 1920, when we were all like punch everybody out and throw 5 innings and we'll have openers. But now we've kind of moved back to innings eating, and now that's working really well. And he's just trying to throw as many innings as he can. So I think it's coming back a little bit. But that is something that kind of, I think minor league guys, I think they're like, well, we can't do this 5 more innings every single year thing. Like, it's just not enough. Like, we have to take some chances here. We got the guy's got to go out and be able to go 121 year, and then the next year he throws 145, 150. He needs to be able to do that. Like, that is a normal progression. I feel like we slowed the progression down so slow and guys were getting hurt anyways, because pitching isn't natural. And technically every single pitch you throw, there's enough force to tear your UCL. So you're just kind of like bypassing it. And like, that's just kind of the way it works. The trade-off is I think we're leaning more into like, Kyle Hendricks can get Tommy John, and so can a guy throwing 100. Like, right. Maybe it's a lower chance, but the trade-off for that is, if you're throwing 88, chances you get a chance or even get to throw 200 innings in a season is like 5%. But if you throw 98, the chances that you get to the big leagues are much, 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 much higher. And the trade-off, it's a trade-off thing. So I feel like that is I think it sucks to say, but like, it's like, we're going to chance the injury a little bit more, because it's kind of, there's up to a certain point, it's built in. And so when it comes to like Ragans, whatever, like seeing him throwing 180 one year though is a great sign. It shows that he can do it. It's just, can you be healthy the next year, even if the innings are down a little bit more or whatever? Can you just not get hurt after you do that? Like, not pitching at all is the problem. It's an interesting problem. Is I don't think there is a solution really in like a way to approach it. I think that there's a little bit of just you're flipping the coin or rolling the die or whatever. Like, it's part of it.
I've got a fantasy question for Eno real quick before we move on to some other names here. But looking at the early drafts, Ragans is going around pick 58, so 15-team league, late round 4. It's about 15 picks after Brian Wu and Hunter Green, who I would put a similar injury grade on. Both of those guys have had arm issues and things in recent years that you could look at and say, okay, we're going to do a back of the napkin innings projection. It's not a full season for them. It's possible, but it's not necessarily likely. And then you have a cluster right after them that I think Ragans is a part of that includes Logan Webb, more of a workhorse, Blake Snell, elevated injury risk, and Max Fried, probably less risky than all but Webb from a health perspective. But how do you stack those guys up? Is there a clear favorite from that bunch? And do you think Wu and Green actually should be going 15 spots ahead of Ragans and the rest of this group? Because I see all of them and I'm like, give me Ragans. Like, even if I have to pay the 3rd round pick to get Ragans, I think he's the best of that bunch for 2026.
Yeah, I have a healthy group at the top of my ranks that ends with Christopher Sanchez. And then there's a long group of players that I think are great pitchers that are great per inning, but I find there's a big injury risk that starts with Wu, and Green is up there, DeGrom, Logan Gilbert after the health scare, Chris Sale is constantly there. Ragans is in there, Ohtani, Glasnow, Snell. That's my group. of injured but tantalizing pitchers that on a per inning basis project so well. That group that I just mentioned, all of them, if you sum up their projections by Steamer, actually by Oopsie, because I got access to early Oopsie, which has Stuff Plus in it.
I should probably get that too.
Their entire projection, their entire ERA projection for that whole group I just mentioned was basically a 3.00. So, like, how many innings do you get? Like Ragans has a 3.29 projection. How many innings do you get? There are a lot of, like, for example, Hunter Green, the last 2 years has been a top 25 pitcher in fantasy. And he's done so without giving you full innings. So it is still possible to be a top 25 pitcher if they only give you 110 innings or 120. Last year, Hunter Green, 107 2/3. Still a top 25 pitcher. So that's why Ragans is in my top 25. He's even in my top 20. And I think the idea is, if I get 100 innings, he could still be so excellent. He's in the top 25. If I get 170, if I get 180, he's going to be top 3. That's the type of talent you're talking about with Jake DeGrom and Hunter Green and Cole Ragans. And I want to bite of that apple. I don't know how much I want to pay, and I don't know how to thread the needle of needing volume, but also wanting quality. But that's a group of players that I can't rank too low because they're so good that they could be hurt half the year and still be in the top 25.
Well, and even if you take those guys as your first starter, you can find less health risk with your next few choices to sort of balance it out too. And I think we're going to get to some names over the course of the winter that fill that gap. There's a little bit of a break though. You go from Ragans in terms of these flags. We're looking for guys with basically two run differences between SIERA and ERA. Aaron Nola pops on this list. And it was a weird year for Aaron Nola because he was hurt. And Aaron Nola is rarely hurt. It was the first time since 2017 in a full season, we're throwing out 2020, where Nola didn't crack 180 innings pitched. That's how much of a workhorse Aaron Nola has been. The 3-year snapshot in SIERA points to a guy who's clearly post-peak, high threes in that metric. That's fine, though. I think he can still be a good stabilizer. Right now, he's going around pick 200 in early drafts. He's got a home run problem. That's not going away in Philly. That's just part of the profile at this point. What I saw that really jumped off the page, though, was a 62.4% left on base percentage. Just a huge mark of bad luck when the career rate is 73%. So the home runs ticked up a little. The damage with runners on base went up. That's pretty fluky. And he got hurt. He didn't get enough innings to just level it back out closer to the projection. Steamer points to a 3.99 ERA, a 1.22 whip, and 171 innings, which given his age and given the injury last year, makes sense. I think he's aging more gracefully than 2025 would lead us to believe. Are you on board with an Aaron Nola bounce back, especially at the current discount,
I am, and this is going to sound a little unscientific, but the every other year situation with Aaron Nola is so strong that it's almost hard to believe. What you mentioned, left on base percentage. So every time he's had a left on base percentage that starts with 6, league wide, it's like 72%. So anytime he's had a 60% left on base percentage, he's followed up with a 73, 79, 74, 76. So he has done this before where he's had a bad year in terms of, I don't know what it is, falling apart, sequencing, not having, just allowing too many of his runners to score, and he's bounced back. But the way that it's played out in ERA has been nothing short of amazing. So basically his first full season, he had a 4.78 ERA. He follows that up with a 3.54 and a 2.37. That's the only time that he had 2 good years in a row, because after that, 3.87, back down to 3.28, 4.63, back down to 3.25, 4.46, back down to 3.57, 6.01. I posit to you, it's going to be a mid-3s ERA next year, just because of, I don't know.
Makes adjustments. That's a guy who makes adjustments right there.
I mean, he started throwing the cutter in there. He started, I would say that, he started throwing the sinker, and he kind of has made a pitch adjustment a lot of times. I think there's also a sequencing, how backwards he's pitching, how much he throws the fastball and fastball counts, that sort of stuff. So I think he's adjusted before. I don't know why he doesn't adjust during the season and not have these like terrible seasons, but he does have he has bad seasons. He has bad seasons every other year, it seems like. And, I'm not saying that this is going to be a Cy Young worthy season, but I wouldn't be surprised if he pitched to his projections. He has a 3.8. Sierra Steamer has a 3.9. Somewhere in there, I think he'll be a good mid-rotation guy. And for most years, he's been good for innings.
Yeah, I guess that's the only way it backfires in Roto is in the bad years and ends up being a lot of innings with bad ratios. So you're taking on a lot of water in those two categories. But is there more to it than the every other year thing that described, Trevor? Like the way Aaron Nola pitches doesn't track with the results. And my best explanation in the past has been the noise that comes from giving up homers. You give up homers with guys on base, ratios are going to get more blown up. You give up solo shots, it's going to be a better ERA year. So I feel like it's almost all noise, like every up and down with him. But the projection is generally going to be right, but the range around it is wider than it should be just because of the homers.
Yeah, anyone who gives up homers is going to have some variation of that. So I think there's a lot of noise from the homers. That's the game. The way the game's played now. Someone posited, I think, I don't know, it's one of the stupid social media sites that there's way less hits and now, and that's bad, right? But my refutation to that would be it's hard. It's easier to strike guys out now, and much harder to not give up a homer. So that's how these statistics can get skewed. Is homers?
That's why the runs per game is not that far off.
Yeah,
the batting average.
Everything else
low,
is the batting average is low, but the difference in here's perspective for you. In 2019, there was 1,600 more home runs than there was in 1998 during the home run race. 1,600 more. So it's just different. So, but the modern pitcher, that's the way that's why these discrepancies in these numbers happen. It's very, very crazy with relievers because the inning totals are lower, but he's getting hurt by home runs. You mentioned how he committed to throwing the sinker. I don't think Aaron Nola will be no, he's not stubborn in where he'll be I'm not going to try that pitch. And he tries things a lot. So we see he'll go one outing where he won't throw any curveballs, and the next one he'll throw all curveballs. That's the way that he prepares. And sometimes those choices, I think, hurt him a little bit more, where he's just not executing a pitch and he's maybe sticking with the game plan a little bit too long, gives up a couple homers, and that outing is chalked, gets hurt and then hurts the projections, and so that's why we get the swings. So if he were a guy who's not going to get hurt like this and has a very much tighter window, Logan Webb, he gave up 14 home runs in 207 innings. You have to string hits against him. You have to do a lot. He gives up lots of hits, but it's harder to do than giving up the 3-run home run. So that is why we see the difference between two guys who are command guys and can get their strikeouts and like to move the ball and don't throw as hard. But that's why we see huge differences in the way that they swing. Yeah. Webb's way more. He's way more reliable in terms of if you're predicting and for fantasy baseball. Logan Webb is a much different choice than Aaron Nola.
Yeah, it's the park and the ground balls, I think, are the two things that just swing it so far to the extremes, as far as Webb being more predictable year to year and Nola being so erratic. But the other thing I just thought of is if you have that kind of workhorse mentality, I wonder if Nola just pitches through minor stuff. If he's in the years where things aren't working, he feels good enough to pitch, but not good enough to pitch at his highest level. And that is, for him and for the Phillies, a better choice than number 6, number 7 starter getting those outings. So he kind of wears it, and the results aren't as good. It's he's got the long-term deal, and if everyone's happy, then it works. But that's where it gets maddening for us on the prediction side. Let's move a little further down the board to a name that's come up a few times on this show since he arrived in 2024. Zebby Matthews for the Twins. The ratios so far in his big league career are not good. 117 innings so far, 5.92 ERA, 154 WHIP, but 131 Ks in 117 innings. He throws 6 pitches. He has a home run problem so far. And that leads to a pretty obvious question. Why exactly is Zebby Matthews getting hammered? Now, I know, you started looking at the fastballs And I think that gives us a lot as far as the where the home runs are coming from problem.
Yeah, I wanted to throw this as a question to Trevor. So these are the heat maps for Zebby against lefties. And, in terms of stuff, so the fastball is on the right and the cutter's on the left. In terms of stuff, and even if you use stuff against a handedness, I've got handedness splits. So this is a 107 stuff plus four-seamer that he's throwing to lefties. And it's got a 563 slugging last year. And the cutter is a 97 stuff plus cutter. And he's got a 760 slugging. So the location plus says those are poor locations for the cutter, but it says that those are good locations for the fastball. The question I have for you, Trevor, is, to my eye, he looks like he's not elevating these things enough. That cutter looks suspiciously too much like a back foot slider that doesn't have back foot slider movement and doesn't get to the back foot. So basically a kind of mediocre back foot slider that's catching too much plate. And the four seam, that looks like he's not getting high enough. Now, I have a two-part question. Do you see similar things in these heat maps? And then the second part of the question is, how easy is it for someone to move their heat maps? Like, how easy is it for him to say, okay, now I need to aim my fastball 3 inches higher, even if it means a couple more walks. And I need to, aim a cutter 3 inches higher, even if it means a couple more hit batters. Like, when you see these, how much hope do you have for him changing where he's putting these pitches?
Well, for first thing, yes, you can change your heat maps. There is things you can do, like sometimes, especially like that four seamer. I'm looking at the heat map for both right and lefty, and there's a whole bunch in the middle of the play. Like he's not getting up and away or up and into righties really at all. And so he usually with your four seam fastball, you command one top. If you throw them up, you command one top of the corner better than the other. And it seems like he's a little bit in between those, though he is elevating okay. He just needs to get up. The problem probably is the cutter. And I'll be honest, cutters to lefties from a righty are almost exclusively effective up and in. Like you throw them down and now it's a slider that just isn't moving enough. Yeah. So he's just he's catching. That's natural swing path for almost every, like that's the natural lefty swing path. So you're throwing a small breaking pitch when you have a slider. Right. That is very similar, and the slider is out of the zone a lot. So now he's below the zone. It's mostly below. I'm looking at the heat map, the slider to both sides as well. Like they're just too similar, and one moves less than the other one. Yeah. So you need to, like the way that righties are using their cutters is an up and in quadrant pitch to where you can use your four seam off of it too, as well. So like you can get up there for a swing and miss where guys will swing under it because they're focusing on getting to the cutter that drops a little bit more, right? That is the way that is being used successfully. And throwing a cutter down and into a lefty as a righty is just not something you ever want to do. And that's almost looks like it's all he does. And so that would explain the mid 700 slugging. That's about 300 points too high. So we need to either separate it from your slider somehow. And that maybe that's targets. Maybe the grip feels too similarly, and for whatever reason he can't differentiate them. Yeah,
mechanically more of a fastball.
He needs to move it towards fastball and farther away from slider, or maybe
turf it. I mean, he has 5 other pitches. Yeah, I mean, like you said, he could throw his slider there and have more success because it would go further. And he has slider and curve, so he could play slider, curve, and changeup off each other. I mean, he has other choices. He doesn't have to go to this. So, yeah, I think I'm glad to hear you say that because either change the mechanics or change the targets, or maybe even just turf it.
Well, now I'm looking at I'm looking at the horizontal movement on his cutter and slider. They're the same.
Yeah.
Like it just, his slider drops more, which means it's better down in the zone. So that's probably the problem is it's the horizontal movement, which is what you want with a cutter more than depth, is the same as his other pitch. They're it's a straight up down line there on the left side of the constellation. And then the curveball is also the same horizontal. So like that plane, 3 pitches are in the exact same X, or moving on the X plane exactly the same way.
Velo and sort of vertical.
Velo.
It's the only difference is velo.
The only difference really is
velo. Yeah.
And locations are similar. So like it's just mid swing adjustments are much easier to make. And so sometimes removing the middle one, it seems like the sliders are the better version. So removing the top one, because it's not getting you the cutters to get people off the four seam up and in. If you're never throwing it there, like, then why do you need a cutter? Because your slider does that thing better than others. And it's weird that the other three pitches, his sinker, four seam, and changeup, are all kind of in the same lane too in horizontal. So like he has these two groups there's three pitches in each group of horizontal movement, and they're just different verticals. So that tells me you don't need all three. You could probably remove one from each one. I mean, he doesn't throw the sinker that much, or it's a two seam. It's all rides the same as this. Those might be misreads even. I got those sometimes where I thought I threw a sinker. It's just a weird pitch. But I mean, 6% is kind of a lot, so maybe it is on purpose. It does seem like he's like, let's just try these and see. And then I just hope he can. Sometimes what happens is you have your 6 pitches, you get to the big leagues, and you're like afraid to get rid of one. Because it feels comfortable, or just like you got to adjust the usage. So I just think that you got to reduce the number of things you can do so hitters can pigeonhole you. And when those patterns are what they keep up on, so they're like, let's look at this lane, pitch, all 3 pitches thrown in this lane, move this way. So you inevitably turn 6 into 2, kind of, and that's when you see these juice numbers just like go crazy high.
I'm glad that's what you said, though, because when I looked at that profile this morning, I was like, why is this so similar? And then it reminds me of our conversations about Taj Bradley, where everything's hard. Like 94% of the pitches he throw are in the 87.5 to 96 range. Like there's nothing truly off speed to change the timing either. So that seems like a really bad combination that I guess leads to the follow-up question. Maybe Eno was about to ask this. Sorry for jumping in, but is this fixable? Is it easily fixable? Is it something that takes a long time? Because scrapping pitches might be as effective as adding something as a first step, but the longer term thing is getting something else that does slow down, either throwing that curveball more or finding something else off speed.
I'm upbeat about this, and I'd love to hear Trevor's opinion on what I'm about to say. But the reason is, I think that the way that modern pitching development goes is it's very stuff plus based, and it's very sort of theoretically based. So it's like, we want you to achieve these shapes in the minors because these shapes are going to give you major league pitch grades. You're going to get major league stuff grades on your pitches. We want this out of this. We want this out of this. We don't even care what's happening at the plate so much as we want your fastball. We want you to have 3 fastballs and 3 breaking balls, or whatever, 3 off-speed pitches. And so we've like come up with this. And I heard Craig Breslow say something to me that I thought was just gobbledygook. And a lot of what he says is gobbledygook, because I mean, it's like every other GM, but it's a little bit worse than a lot of some of the GMs, where it's just a lot of words that mean nothing. But he said something like, we have to ground truth everything. Everything has to come back to wins on the field. And I was like, blah, 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 blah. But I think what happens a little bit is, like, Zebby came to the big leagues and was like, I have 6 pitches. My stuff plus is, says that all 6 pitches are good or better than average. I should be throwing this. This is how I've been throwing the minors. I have all these 6 pitches. I do cutter and this against lefties. I do this and this against righties, and I think he got his nose caved in a little bit. I mean, like, to be honest, like a 5.92 ERA in 117 innings, it's with 2 attempts at the big leagues. I think now, the question is, what can I do that will actually work? It's not so much what can I do that'll theoretically work, and it's a little bit more like, now it's time to just get the outs and figure it out at the major league level. And I think the good news is the reason we do this development is we give you lots of weapons. And I think of, like, Logan Gilbert learned a sweeper in the minors because high stuff plus. This is great. If you had a sweeper, that'd be great. He gets to the big leagues. I can't control the sweeper. This doesn't work for me. I'm going to go with the gyro, and so I see a similar parallel here. It's great. Zebby has the pieces, and he needs to, break through and figure out which ones actually work.
That's the crux of pitching or just development in general. It's like, how much clay can we pile here? And then, but then you have to eventually decide what the shape is. Like, yes, things are like, oh, this is nasty, but you don't pitch in a vacuum. And sometimes you just go, oh, it's just not working. Like the purpose of this pitch isn't coming to fruition. And sometimes that means you pull the foot off the gas and throwing it and then figure out if you can make it better, or you just get rid of it. Right. So, and it's scary. Like you got to get used to doing that. And that's sometimes struggling in the big leagues is the way that happens, or getting sent back down to the minors. And you're like, you know what? I'm just going to do this because what's the worst can happen? I'm going to sit here. Like that's usually what lights the fire. If you're up in the big leagues, you're getting lots of innings still, and it's still not going well. Like sometimes you need a catalyst, and it looks like that's why he's exciting. You go look, you're like, you got velocity. By the way, just a side note here, it says right-handed four-seam fastballs are 95 on average now. Did that go up another quarter of a mile an hour?
Yes.
95 on average is insane.
It's so ridiculous. And even for starters, it's like 90. Is it starters? Is that the average for starters? Or no, the starters is like 94.5 or something, but it's still ridiculous.
It's everyone 95 over that. Well, that means relievers are like averaging 95.5, which is
but Zebby has 96, so it's still a little bit better.
We got slightly above average.
He dominated in AAA this year, Zebby did, but he did it throwing 20% cutters, and I think that's what's going to change.
Yeah, the commands, and then it comes down like, what do you command the best? Like what do you got to go look. I would always go look at each of my pitches, the breakdowns, the like how the run values are, and like just, are these getting hammered, and why are they getting hammered? Are they working with my other pitches? And sometimes you got to say, no, they're not working. The one exception to that rule, this is an anecdote from my last year. I threw my gyro. It had like a 5% whiff. Like nobody missed it. But my command of it was really good, and I was throwing it a lot just so I could set up other things, but I knew it wasn't for swings and misses. And so, which that's way lower than it had ever been before. And that's just what I had to work with. So it served a purpose, and it just changed what that purpose was, because I wasn't getting hurt on it, but it wasn't also so wasn't super effective. I couldn't count on it for certain ways that I pitched.
Down in velo?
Not really. A little bit, but not really. The movement moved a little bit less. It might have been where I was pitching. I don't know. Grip maybe needed to be adjusted, but like I had the sweeper, so I don't need it to do that anymore. I have a different weapon for that purpose, the swing and miss. So that.
So don't use the cutter like Zebby. Like you can also think about use cases where you're like, oh, he's using the cutter as like to establish, and he's like, this is a primary fastball for me. I need to establish with it. What if you just change how you use it, and you're like, no, this needs to be like a change of pace. This needs to be like, I'm going to establish the four seam. And when they think it's a four seam and I give them the cutter and they're more surprised by the cutter and they're not anticipating the cutter because I throw it 20% or against lefties 25, 30% of the time, then, if I dial that down to 10%, it could still be an effective pitch for me. It's just not one that they're going to sit and wait for and clobber.
It's about subverting expectations, and you don't want to be too locked into an archetype of a pitcher, and he is kind of there. And Taj Bradley definitely is. Like you just expect the things that when he's throwing his pitches and how they move is he just does it he does it by the book. I don't know how else to say it. Like it has that feeling, and hitters feel that way. And so you have to find you got to find things that they're not expecting, even if you have that type of stuff. Sometimes that's throwing a pitch that on paper doesn't look great, or in a vacuum isn't great, but it like works with your pitches well. Go look at Jacob deGrom. Go look at Trey Savage. Like go look at each pitch individually. Outside of the ride on the four-seam fastball for Trey, like there's nothing in the red on Savant. Like they're average, but even his slider's bad because it goes the other way. But like because of the way he throws and because of his splitter, that makes his slider really good. Because the velo different. Like he's so weird that like hitters like, I don't know how to get ready for this. This is the weirdest thing I've ever seen. That's what makes him good, not because his pitches are moving a ton. And that's it's a balance. You got to find those two balances. I think you hit it right on the head. When guys are coming up, they're trying to make things move like crazy, but that doesn't necessarily mean they're going to be successful, especially when everyone does that. And then the normal becomes everything's moving like crazy. Got to be outside of normal.
Less surprising than it used to be to have stuff like that. Zebby's fun though, because he goes in a range where it's really finding late value from a fantasy perspective. There's a lot of unproven guys around him that are exciting. You could choose between Zebby, Parker Messick, Jonah Tong lives down there right now in that pick 300 range. I don't know if that ADP is going to hold. A couple other options that have been in the big leagues a little longer, like Simeon Woods Richardson, who actually pitched really well in the second half. Ryan Weathers looks like he's maybe found a little something around a couple injuries. And then if you just want to avoid the less experienced guys, you could just say, hey, I'll just take Seth Lugo here and I'll get some veteran innings in this spot instead. But I think this is more fun looking at the less experienced, like 5 guys all around them. Who do you like most for 2026 out of Zebby, Messick, Tong, Woods Richardson, and Weathers?
And Lugo. I'm taking Zebby.
Zebby over Tong?
Zebby over all of them.
Trevor?
That's tough. I mean, it's funny, like we're talking about fantasy here, right? So this is, if you guys didn't notice, whenever we're talking about some specific fantasy, I shut up. So, like I'm over here like, yeah, Lugo's like what you're going to expect with him, right? But I think, I would tend to lean towards Zebby too, because I think there is like a couple little clicking, oh, I've decided to get away from that and do that. And then suddenly he could be just off to the races. So there could be really high ceiling, maybe ceiling wise, and maybe Tong too. Tong could also figure out usage a little bit or add
I'd like a breaking ball. He doesn't have a
breaking ball.
He doesn't have a good slider,
figure out a way to sweep the ball from that high or something. Like if he figures that out, then he could just be ridiculous. Like it could be just a whiff city because
just look at the depth charts. Zebby, the Twins need Zebby.
Yeah,
they need him to pitch.
Yeah, so he's going to get a lot of innings. Yeah, that's probably what we're operating on.
The Mets might not necessarily need Tong.
That's a very good point. So yeah, I'd go with Zebby. Then that makes a lot of sense.
I'll dig a little. I think I would take Tong if I'm trying to just chase the ceilings for those guys. I think more could go right even faster for Tong if he makes the adjustments you described. And I think they need pitching pretty badly in New York right now. They're pretty banged up. Sean Manaea does pop on this list too. We just don't know if he's healthy right now. We'll try to get an answer on that in the next few weeks. He may need surgery for bone spurs in his elbow. He may have had that surgery and he hasn't told anyone yet. So we've got Will Salmon and Tim Britton working on it.
He's like a one-pitch guy at this point. And, I was looking at him, as well as, some other interesting guys. But one guy that kind of stood out was like Sonny Gray, who's, popping the same type of analysis. And I just wonder if sometimes you will underperform some of your peripherals if you fall in love with the pitch. And Sonny's kind of fallen in love with the sweeper and thrown so many sweepers to this point that I just wonder if there's a little bit of fatigue there. And Manaea, it's one pitch. Like it's the fastball is his best pitch. And I know he sometimes throws the other pitches, but the sometimes is getting fewer and fewer. It's pretty wild. I think he's headed towards relieving. I don't know. But I would also love to say like, oh, Manaea could like make a tweak to his slider and changeup. Do you know how many times I've talked to Sean about a tweak he's made to his slider or changeup? I have like 8 million interviews in my phone with Sean, and he's so upbeat. And every time it's going to be the thing that works, but for whatever reason, I think it's because he's a high efficiency, low slot lefty. There's a lot of guys like him, Haney, Kyle Harrison. I've talked about this before. I just think it's really hard for this type of pitcher to add a really good secondary. Yeah.
A few other names that came up on this search. Max Meyer, probably going to be on a future episode. Shane Baz, kind of interesting, moving back into the Trop for half of his starts. I think that alone just gives him a little more appeal for 2026. But I want to move on to something else Eno is digging into. Big contracts for free agent pitchers. What has happened in recent years when teams spend up in free agency? And it's interesting because you found like a clear good bucket and a clear bad bucket across a pretty wide swath of deals.
Yeah, so I just looked at the 130, 150 million dollar, maybe it's $150 million deals, and since the beginning, since 2013. And if you're looking at this, I've got it sorted by the amount of wins above replacement the team got from the deal. And we all kind of remember Max Scherzer. That's the best pitching deal of all time. They got basically almost 40 WAR. The Nationals did from him in 7 years. They signed him at 30, and they got awesome production from him for $210 million. Clayton Kershaw, I believe one year of that might have been like still team control, like it might have been an extension, because they signed him at 26. So maybe that shouldn't count, but it was 7 years and $215 million, and it was the second best pitching deal of the modern free agent era. Justin Verlander with the Tigers and then traded to the Astros is in third. Tanaka coming over, he did his 7-year deal and then he just left. But he gave basically almost 20 wins of replacement to the Yankees. The Greinke deal was a pretty good one. And I actually think the Cole deal will turn out to be okay. It is the biggest number, but I haven't adjusted all of these numbers to modern, so it is one of the more recent deals. This isn't all on one money baseline. So, they've got 17 wins from him, and there's an asterisk next to his name because it's not over yet. He still has till 2028 to add to his total. So I think he'll comfortably end up in the top 5 when all is said and done of pitcher deals. The bottom, I'm sad to say it, and it's not done yet. So Jake DeGrom, I think, has another year on his deal, but he's only given the Rangers 5 wins above replacement for $185 million. Another one that I thought might be an okay one was the Jose Barrios deal with the Blue Jays, $131 million for 7 years. I thought, hey, this is a really steady guy, but he's only given them 6 wins above replacement. He was off the playoff rotation. The Patrick Corbin deal is what everyone's thinking of. That one was a terrible deal. The Max Scherzer deal with the Mets, I think he was just pretty old to be giving $130 million for 3 years to at that point. And then the Chris Sale deal with the Red Sox that they traded him away off of is in sort of bottom 6-7 there. So the difference, if you kind of add it up, I came up with this. So I just bucketed the top 5 and the bottom 5. And so the difference is age. The best 5 were 28 and 0.6 years old when they signed. The worst 5 were 31.2. So you remember that Scherzer deal when he's nearly 40. The best deals got nearly 30 wins above replacement. The worst deals got 6.5. But here is the thing that really stands out to me most of all, and it's kind of impressive. The best 5 had 659 innings pitched going into the contract year. The worst 5 had 491 innings pitched. So the biggest thing, and it's not, you don't see in K percentage, the best 5 had a lower K percentage than the worst 5. They had the identical walk rates. The biggest separator between good deals and bad deals was how many innings did you pitch in the 3 years before you signed your deal. That was a surprise to me.
That's weird, and there's probably some reasons for that, but I'm trying to take what you've got here and apply it to this year's class. And my first thought is, well, Framber's great on innings, but he's the oldest of the bunch, and I'm just not comfortable with 6 or 7 years for Framber. I don't think it goes full Corbin, but I don't think it's going to end particularly well either. I think the ceiling is going to fall kind of fast for him. So I don't know, man. Like I just, Framber freaks me out for the number of years that people are talking about for him right now. But I mean, Trevor, what do you think of for this year's class based on some of those numbers was putting out there?
It isn't. They are a little older than at least a position player. Free agent contracts have those guys have been really young. We've seen that last 3 years, and so it's a stark contrast there, and especially when these guys are a little bit older, and then we're talking about going to your 39-year-old season for Framber Valdez. He is solid, and I think consistency wise, he has shown his ability to be consistent. But I think I also agree. As soon as the velo goes from, being able to run it up 96, 97 when you need it in big spots, like to he's 91, 90 to 93. As soon as that happens, it like the arsenal also just is going to completely change on how valuable it is. And it's going to happen really quickly. So I'm a player. I'll forgo get all your money, but like this is built in, and nobody is under any illusions that the last 3 years of this are going to provide any value. You got to get it all in the front. And that's the funny thing about like the Patrick Corbin contract. Yeah, there was 3 years in there where it was, oh my God.
They did get a ring. They got
a ring, and he was really good the first two, and then it just downhill from there. So like, and there's a lot of people. I mean, if it flipped, right, and he got the good years at the end, it would feel differently. It's about what's most recent, but like there's people like I still think that we got the value that we need to do at the right time, and it is about timing. So
that reminds me, you cut off a name at the bottom. There's a Steven Strasburg gave his team 0 wins, and I'm just listening to you talk, and I'm like, there is a difference between Corbin and Strasburg in Washington. Like I think there's a little bit more like, we got to ship, and maybe they feel the same way about Strasburg. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe they feel the same way about both, but Strasburg signed that new deal and then immediately never pitched again, basically.
Yeah. And TOS, man, it's the new scourge.
That's the
pitchers.
bad one.
It's interesting to see like what these guys will do, especially with the upcoming negotiations as well. There's some uncertainty around this stuff. So, but I wouldn't be surprised if I wouldn't surprise me one bit if Framber's like a more of a 4 or 5 year thing, and that's end up what happening. It wouldn't surprise me one bit, because that might be all that there is. There's going to be a lot of like hand wringing and pulling away from these things, and the desire to go get a guy like Framber for 7 years. I don't know where it will be, or if there's two teams that a bidding war can turn it into that, because it's going to need to turn into that. I know the projections have it ending there. It ain't going to start anywhere near there, because if they can avoid that, like. Because it's the last couple of years are this is how these contracts have always been built up too. This has all been built in. Like in the historically, they're like, yeah, the last 30% of this contract's probably not going to be worth anything. But like the weird thing about baseball and the markets is the new team is kind of paying you back pay for the value you just created for your old team. And also
the Strasburg deal, he got his money later. Like the money he was earning for the Nationals. Compared, like the value he's creating is underpay until he got the big deal, and then he got hurt, and it's like, well, that's just bad luck. Like he was.
Let's just think of it this way: it's severance, guys. He's just being back. Yeah. He's getting back pay, and that's weird to think about. And fans are like, I don't care. I don't want to have to factor that in. But that is like built into the psyche of both sides when they're negotiating these things. They knew Albert Pujols wasn't going to be good at some point. It just was way kind of earlier than they thought it would be. But like they knew some of that would Mickey Cabrera, same thing. Everyone knew that at some point that contract wouldn't be worth it, and it's back pay for all the value you created at the front.
No, I mean, it's true. I don't want to be negative, but when I look at this class, like I don't see a Garrett Cole. I don't see a Max Scherzer, right? Like I don't see the next guy. And, I know that there's been these trends in baseball to pitch less in general. So maybe, a study of mine that goes back to 2013 is capturing too many guys that used to be more of workhorses, and we just don't throw as many innings anymore. So maybe it should be a relative thing. But even then, let's say, okay, Framber has the most innings. So you like that. He's the oldest. You don't like that. Right. Dylan Cease has the second most innings, but he has the highest walk rate. And weirdly, the best deals, they had really good walk rates. So there's been findings that guys with bad walk rates, bad command have more health problems, later into their careers. And it's just a fact that, if you walk to 10% of the guys, those are free guys on base like that. So every one of these, Ranger Suarez has the walk rate of, a big deal, but nothing else, not the innings, not the strikeout rate, not the age. So we may just not have a Max Scherzer or Garrett Cole this year. It may not be that, but I will say that I like a lot of these guys. If you just shave a year or two off, to point out, like Tatsuya Imai, like I like him. I don't know if I'd like him at 198 as Tim Britton has him, but Jim Bowden has him at like 150-5. I kind of love that one.
Yeah.
So Imai is 28. So he does have something that aligns with the good deals, the age. So each one of these guys has something that aligns with the good deals and something that aligns with the bad deals. So there may not just be, there won't be a $300 million guy here. We know that already. But, it's sobering to think of that. There may just not be a great top of the line starter this year on the market.
That part's fine, but I think especially in the shadow of an impending lockout, almost certain lockout, almost a year from now, right? The thing that I want more than anything is players to hit free agency sooner, because every free agent class would be infinitely better if it wasn't 6 years of major league service time to get there. If it was 3 or 4, 4 is probably the sweet spot. Like, you do want players to be in an organization for a little while from a rooting perspective, right? You don't want almost immediate free agency if you're just like, hey, I want to like root for some guys on this team for a couple of years. Like this thing from a fan perspective. You already don't get to choose where you work in the first place.
It's so bad that you'd want younger guys here. You want more guys here.
Well, and it would flip the script a little bit because the dollars would be going to guys closer to peak age, right? The outcomes would be generally better. You'd be getting paid appropriately for what you can do. Like that to me is a healthier
and
outcome
you wouldn't
in
have
the long run anyway.
National media accounts like pointing out, every time someone gets hurt, blah, 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 who's paid $35 million a year and has pitched 2 innings this year has gone down as having Tommy John. It's like,
such an unnecessary thing that people do.
Really
completely uncalled for. But if you're going to do that, I think you should say blah, 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 making $800K
this year,
provided $48 million in surplus value this season. When
I
you
got
have
that
the
question
awards
once.
at the end of the year. Yeah.
Someone said, so I proposed that a possible adjustment to de-incentivize this, like when you get to free agency, that you're told, get as much money as humanly possible because it takes 6 years to get there. It takes forever. Like Tyler Rogers just went to free agency for the first time. He's been in pro ball for 13 years. That's
messed up.
Right. But he's also like that is the longest it could possibly be. And he's a guy. I understand why you can't project him. I get it. But like that is like he's 35 and now he's like you're not in your prime. He's like, do I have a prime, guys? I've been throwing 83 the whole time. Like, what do you think is gonna be the difference? He's an outlier. But like what my proposal was, okay, we reduce the length of control, so 4 years, and then I was like, maybe there's like on that 5th year, it's like a mechanic that slightly favors the team, but there's a lot of situations where a guy would go into free agency just in case things didn't work out perfectly, or if he platformed really well, he gets the rights to make that decision, whatever it is, right? Like maybe there's something there, and then instead of worrying about like getting maximum amount of dollars, maybe that limit goes in the years, so the AAVs can stay the same. But like it's 5 years is the max length of a contract, not the money, only the length. So then guys are like, okay, now I'm open to listening to all the 5-year, $150 million deals. More teams can participate in that because the total money is less, even though the AAV is higher, the same. Then, and also you can count on, if I'm still good, I get another crack at free agency. So now I don't have to all my eggs in this basket as well. The incentives
now
change.
We're looking at more 26, 27, 28-year-olds in free agency, and then
more free agents.
A second group of free agents that are 32, 33. Those would have to be elite. That would be like Bryce Harper coming back on the market right now instead of being in the middle of a 13-year deal. He comes back on the market right now.
So now we avoid this like the dead years where guys stuck on a team and that team stuck with him, and then that guy also can't go provide whatever value he has to another team either. Like, and then he has to sit there and just like listen to how he sucks now. Like, that's not fun. People don't like that, no matter how much money you're making. Like, sometimes you guys like, there's maybe a better situation out there. So it kind of solves 2 problems there. And then now there's more people in free agency, like more often, because now we have 2 free agencies having more total people will be in free agency. More supply brings down the prices, guys. Like the owners, if you guys love it. Capitalism's great. That's what it's supposed to do. So not like fixed costs that go 13 years out. Like, oh, you want to sell your team in the next 5 to 6 years? Like, better not to have like
3 13-year deals
you
on. I mean,
you can project things a little bit better too because the contracts are shorter, and also players are getting paid still. Like you can still get great contracts without having to limit how big it can be. And then so we're bringing it all the way back. The question I got,
and if you wanted to stay with one team your whole career, you could do that. You could just sign.
And I think local teams would be more likely to sign their guys the extensions too. Maybe they're on that limit as well. So now those extensions are more affordable for teams like the Brewers to do, and for teams like, I'm not ever going to say the Pirates because he's shown no ability to do anything, but like other small teams can maybe extend some of the guys that you're used to. So the question I got was, like if the guys are leaving earlier, then how the team that invested millions into development, how they're going to get paid back? And I was like, they got the value when they controlled them for 5 years and underpaid them. That's still going to exist.
Yeah,
I'd be willing to do a smaller version of this where we limit contracts to 6 years just for 1 year of getting closer to free agency and 1 year closer. Like I think that year is huge. So, I mean, it doesn't have to be the exact parameters that we set forth here, but
it just self-corrects incentives for both teams and players so that this like the player's out of his prime and now we're paying him. That's a problem for teams. And that makes sense. And fans have a problem with that. But also players are like, people don't understand. Like players are like, I don't want to suck for the last 4 years of my contract either. Like I don't want to do that. Also, it's not as enticing. Some guys like it, but like players are like, do I want to lock myself into something for 13? That's a long
It also stops mucking around with the Lux tax a little bit, because you can't do like the Max Fried deal where you're like, oh, we would give you this for 6 years, but we'll make it 8. It's just like,
and then suddenly you don't need to defer $1 billion either, because they need to do that to make these things work. Suddenly they work better naturally. You don't need to defer a bunch of money, so it kind of helps.
And the reason. And you can't, like, the whole negotiation process is like a give and take. So there's no way that you can go to the owners and say, we want to get to free agency a year sooner. And then the owners say, okay, what are you giving us? And you'd be like, nothing.
Or like shorter contract lengths.
Yeah.
Which is, I think, a bet of that would be a slight win.
Might
for the
like
owners.
That. They might like that.
That'd be more of a win for owners than players, because technically you're getting less guaranteed money. You are.
Yeah.
And that is, if you're going to control a player for this long, you have to be guaranteed forever.
You get hurt on that 5-year deal and not get the extra 5 years that you might have gotten before.
Yeah, that's a trade-off. That would be something the players are giving up.
But I would also assume that the 5-year, if he limited it at 5 or 6 or whatever, that those numbers would go up.
Exactly. But you still have the AAV to adjust the market. The AAV still exists. So the money is still flexible enough. So we're not breaking the system the way that it is. The system still works. There's the agents and the people who negotiate. The negotiation still kind of happens the same way. It's just in terms of AAV now, because we're not like, give us 11 years or 12 years or 13 years. Like we're getting to a point where like those years we're adding and tacking on probably aren't going to be valuable for either side. Really,
we've been talking.
They're not getting ready for another free agency deal. You're kind of just like raking in money, and the team knows that they're probably not going to get very much value out of that player. Like that's the fact that that's part of a negotiation is a pretty good example of something not working very well. That little part.
Yeah, it doesn't really seem to work for anybody. The team knows it's going to be bad. The player knows it's going to be bad. The only reason
and they give me some extra money.
Yeah, more money.
I'll be miserable for like. I'll just let you guys yell at me why I don't do anything. I'm getting paid though. It sounds good, but it's in theory it's easier to handle it in practice from what I've seen.
Yeah,
seems pretty fixable. One more topic before we go today. This is a lingering question that's come up for a few years running. Will 2026 be the year of the splitter? And I'm pointing back to that Davey Andrews Fangraphs piece from October, where he highlighted just how much splitters were spiking in the playoffs. One thought I had when he wrote that was, well, maybe that's just the pitchers that are in the playoffs this year. Just a lot of guys that have a splitter. So I didn't come away from that piece going, yeah, the whole league's going to start throwing splitters, or as a group, going to try to throw a lot more splitters because of the teams that were in the playoffs having guys that could throw them really well. So I'll ask you first, Trevor. Do you think 2026 becomes the true year of the splitter?
Well, we are in an era of baseball where every year is a new pitch. Like it's basically, if people don't have a pitch that serves in the utility that splitters do in the changeup category usually, or the vertical movement going down category, an off-speed pitch, if you will, as opposed to a breaking ball. There's a lot of guys who still don't have one, haven't figured out how to do it. And that we saw, in spring, everyone's like kick change, and we didn't say kick change very much, but a lot of guys are still throwing kick changes. They just call them changeups. It was just a grip. They found a way to develop it, and more guys could throw a changeup now. And so now they want to throw it. I think the splitter probably is the next one. I keep asking, what's the next sweeper? What's the next thing that a movement type that we're going for or trying to add to arsenals? I think the splitter makes logical sense for that. What that means, like how much more, 5%, like 3% more pitches or splitters or whatever, it makes a lot of sense. But like you watch Roki Sasaki, which is a forkball, by the way, they're different. It's unique in that way. It tumbles forward. Everyone else doesn't have theirs. But Yoshi Yamamoto throws a splitter. They are different pitches. It depends on your hand size. Ask Jack Morris; he'll explain it to you. But the effect is the same. They move in a way that complements their thing. They have good utility for what they throw. I think a lot of guys could use that utility. And I think hitters haven't seen as many of them, which is also a big part of that. So it's like sweepers were awesome when no one saw them. Now suddenly sweepers have evened out a little bit because people are like, their swings have adjusted to hit flatter breaking balls and whatever. They same thing with the high fastball. So I think this one is, again, it's going to be an adjustment. Hitters are going to adjust to it. And then we'll go back and then watch I'm just waiting for the straight change to come back, where we're now throwing something that the Trevor Hoffman palm ball, he's throwing 93 mile an hour fastballs and a 76 mile an hour straight change that moves exactly the same way. That will happen at some point. We will have to.
2029 is the year of the ethos.
Maybe. I think we're going to keep doing this. It's going to get faster and faster.
It's a copycat league. What we saw was Evan Phillips was his waiver claim for the Dodgers. He throws a sweeper. The Dodgers start teaching the sweeper to everybody. Oh, the Yankees are teaching the twirly or whatever they called it. And the Mariners teach it to everybody in the minors, and it kind of spreads through. And now the sweeper is actually not as effective as it used to be. That's what Trevor's talking about. It's a sort of, the merry-go-round that we're on. I do think that, like, when we look at the amount of splitters that were thrown in the postseason this year, and it was like, just a 3-5x more than we've ever seen before. Some of that is semantics because, Tim Lincecum's splitter wasn't showing up on that because it's called a changeup. And that might be because it's a fosh, he kind of splits these fingers, but he splits these fingers and the ball kind of comes off his weak fingers. So that's called a fosh. And if you look at Gossman's splitter, it's actually very similar to Lincecum's, but they call it a splitter. So there's some semantics in here, and it might not be captured by all of our metrics because Baseball Savant might not call them all splitters. But I do think that there's something here, which is we have Edgertronic videos now that show us exactly high-speed videos that show us exactly how the ball's coming off. We have a better sense of seam-shifted wake and how that can help a pitch. And so I think it's the year of the changeup, the year of the splitter, whatever it is. It's the year of like using seam-shifted wake to create something that maybe you can help guys who are supinators create that off-speed movement. The kick change is in this group, and I don't know what we'll call it. Maybe we'll just call it the splitter. But I believe that this is where things are headed because we really, to some extent, solved the breaking ball space to a great degree. And I think that the opportunity here is to do better in the changeup space.
All right,
absolutely,
good breakdown. I think it's never as simple as it seems. It's never the year of the splitter. So I think that's a good way to think about things going forward. All right. Anything else you guys want to add before we head out?
Well, we had a little secondary question there if there were certain swings that were suited for it. And I did. This is just an interesting query because just to put the road up real quick. I didn't adjust for location the first time, and I had the exact opposite of this. But here, if you bucket guys, if you adjust for location where the pitch was at the plate, and you adjust for bat speed, and you bucket high tilt and low tilt swings, the high tilt swings do better against splitters than the low tilt swings. There's a slight problem with this, though, which is, why would you have a low tilt swing on a splitter that's dropping to the bottom part of the zone? Why would you throw a flat swing on a pitch in the bottom of the zone? So those low tilt people, these low tilt swings in this result that I'm showing you, they were fooled.
Mostly,
they're putting the wrong swing on the pitch. So the high tilt guys have a 352 slugging, the low tilt have a 111 slugging. Well, they were just fooled. So I mean, I do think theoretically high tilt guys have the kind of scoopier swing that could hit a low pitch better. But this is one of the reasons why it's so hard to study this stuff, is that in this case, if you put a low tilt swing, if you put a flat swing on a splitter in the bottom half of the zone, you thought you were getting a fastball. I do think this is part of why it might be the year of the splitter or whatever, is that I think that the splitters are, for whatever reason, they're harder to separate from fastballs, and that you might fool batters more often from some aspect of their spin, their release, whatever it is. But this doesn't tell the whole story. I tried to adjust for location and I tried to adjust for bat speed, but it still doesn't tell you everything.
Yeah, and that mailbag question from Isaac was basically, which hitters are built to handle splitters? If there's going to be more of them, are there certain types of hitters that can do a little more damage against them? And I was thinking about it from the perspective of mistakes. You hang a splitter, maybe that flat swing ends up being okay, but I think for well-executed ones, the high tilt makes a lot more sense.
Yeah,
because what I did the first time, I didn't adjust for location, and it said that the low tilt swings did better. And the reason was the low tilt swings were being put on hanging ones that were high in the zone. So,
yeah. It depends on the guy and how much he can vary his tilt to also. Some guys are just like, they go from very flat to a little bit less flat, and that's their natural swing path. And then there's guys like Riley Green who can't flatten his swing out at all. He just can't do it. He can't get up there. It's just the way he's put together. So like, he's going to handle it better. But generally, if you think flat versus tilt guys, like, it's about angle. If the ball's tilted down and you try to hit that and you go at that with a flat swing, the chances that you do the thing the pitcher wants you to do, either swing over or hit the top of it, are much higher than vice versa. If you come at a ball flat and it's going down, the chances you hit the top of the ball or miss over it are just really high. And that's why, just physically, it makes a lot of sense. And you can make a lot of assumptions just with knowing, like, do I want a guy to hit this on top of the ball or not?
Geometry.
What is the chances that the angle of the way he swings produces that outcome? And that makes a lot of sense. If you can go all the way back to 11th grade geometry, this will all make sense to you. There's some sine cosine or something equation out there that will help you.
There's a top line answer, though. I think a high tilt guy, putting these answers from both of you guys together, is a high tilt guy with a good sense of the zone, or at least that makes good swing decisions.
Generally, we'll have a better chance. Yeah.
Right. Because they're not going to get fooled as often. And when they do they think it's a splitter, they'll be more likely to put the right swing on it. Junior Caminero, like, probably not going to be a great splitter hitter.
Nice.
Nick Kurtz, we'll see.
Yeah, I want to see how it all plays out. Before we go, Thanksgiving coming up here in just a few days. What's you guys' go-to? What's your favorite thing? Either main course, side, dessert. What's your thing that you look forward to on Thanksgiving, Trevor?
I love turkey. I know that this is a coin flip. Like, this is not popular. People are like, someone told me yesterday, like, the turkey's the most overrated bird. I'm like,
worst bird.
It can be cooked well. It can be cooked well.
It's just really easy to get dry turkey. It's like, but if you get someone who like takes it seriously, moist, like a 40-hour like brine, and which I did last Christmas, and it worked out. It's hard to when you soak a turkey in liquid for 2 days, it's hard to make it dry at that point. But I love turkey, and then like the turkey stuffing, mashed potatoes with the gravy, just It's great, and then just the hardest nap you've ever had after. It's usually about that day. That's what I need. So, yeah, it's me.
Pecan pie.
Pecan.
You making your own?
I love it. I don't know. I'm hoping to skate by without doing any cooking this year. If I'm going to have to go to Fresno, then I'm not cooking.
Keep the streak going.
No, I've been the cook, for the last couple, but this year we're going to Fresno, and I'm going to throw my hands up and be like, hopefully serve me. I'm here, serve me.
That's what my dad would say. Like, I'm just going to try to skate through it this year. I'm like, keep the 50-year streak going, Dad. I've never seen you touch anything. And then
are they coming to you? They're coming. You're not.
They're coming up here.
You travel.
We're going. My sister lives in Seattle too, so my family lives outside Seattle, but me and her live up here. So usually one of us hosts. So she's gonna host, and we're going to them. So
her kids are older, or whatever.
Her kids are older, and they can just,
makes it a little bit easier.
they'll take Mads and just keep them entertained for hours. They love little kids, so great.
It's a huge win. I think the Thanksgiving pull for me is it's a sour cream blackberry pie that this place makes near me. The place is called the Norsky Nook. They're on Goldbelly now. I only go there once a year. It is for Thanksgiving, and usually it's for the sour cream blackberry pie, which sounds a little weird, but it's delicious. It's just one of those things it's the only time I get it. So got to get that order in. Actually, that might be due like today or tomorrow. Now that we're recording this late week. So, all right. Hope everyone has a great Thanksgiving. Safe travels if you're on the road. Enjoy the time with friends and family if you are lucky enough to get that opportunity for this holiday. That's going to do it for this episode of Rates and Barrels. We're back with you next week.
Thanks for listening, and happy Thanksgiving.